Hello my friends, welcome to my channel. So this episode is extremely important because we are going to understand the entire manifestation of our sensory experience. If you are watching the video from my channel the first time, please give it a try. I'm using ABC English to explaining all those important philosophical questions. So first of all, let me begin with a question. We always believe that the item, the object is something is just there, and our sensory organs is just basically receiving the signals, and to receiving something is already there. So the word is already there. There is nothing less, nothing more. We're just open the window to have a look. Basically, this is how we understand. But let's think about one question. When you reach out your hand to touch an object, did you realize that if you don't have this hand, then that object is untouchable? You cannot really touch that object if you don't have this hand. Not only, if there is no light, there is no air, there is no neural system in your brain, then this feeling of that object, this feeling of substance, it will not even emerge. What you so-called you see, you touch, you smell, you hear, are they real or not? So this is the part is so confusing, and we already know the answer from idealism and the answer from materialism. So if you think, oh, am I suggesting that, or everything is just illusion, everything is just the projection of idea, of our consciousness, I will say no, that's not what I stand. And also, if you are thinking, am I suggesting everything just material and our sensory, our feeling, emotion, just the illusions? I'll also say no. You can watch the previous episodes, and I demonstrate very clearly about where I stand, which is middle way. You might be curious. So, what is my answer? First of all, I want to say that yes, I will give the answer. And I'm not going to just analyzing this part of perspective and that side of story and then just give you both sides of information, but I cannot really give you what I think. I'm not like that, because I will give you what I think, and I believe this answer can solve this really big problem about our understanding of objective and subjective. Okay, the first step, standing wave. It will be a little bit abstract to understand this part, but actually this is the most important part to understand this entire mechanism of manifestation. If you understand this, the next two are super easy to understand. But also this part is specialty of relational non-duality. So I will be very glad to explain this part a lot. When you press your finger on a table, the feeling of hardness isn't really a property of the table itself. It's actually a response of the tension between your skin, your nervous system, and the material of the table. In other words, without your hand, that hardness would never happen. Hardness isn't the table's essence, and it's not an illusion in your hand. It's the relationship between your hand and the table reaching the conditions for manifestation. The critical tension, the nervous feedback, and cognitive awareness. It's like when a ball moves across a string. At that moment, resonance happens, vibration appears, and music emerges. So manifestation doesn't happen in the object, and it doesn't happen only in your brain. It happens in the relational field between you and the object. This is the core of relational non-duality. It's not about subject, not about object. It's about resonance. So what about vision? Vision is often seen as objective. But when you see a tree, it's not like the tree is projecting an image in front of your eyes. It's a resonance event created by the optics, space, and neural tensions between you and the tree. Seeing green happens because at a certain light frequency, your photoreceptors match structurally with the light waves. This match isn't you capture green. It's that your relationship with the color green enters a channel where it can be manifested. If that relationship breaks, like in the dark, or with closed eyes, or with vision problems, the green disappears instantly. This shows that visible green isn't an objective fact. It's a temporary phenomenon within a relational structure. So what about sound? Sound actually shows the nature of relationship even more clear. When an object vibrates, it creates a chain of changes in the air molecules. And the vibration of your eardrum is just one bridge in that chain. In other words, the sound you hear isn't some sound thing traveling into your ear. It's that your ear happens to resonate with that relational field. If you are deaf, the vibrations still exist, but the sound doesn't manifest. If there is no air, no matter how much the object vibrates, there's no sound. This isn't a subjective illusion, and it's not purely an objective thing either. It's a relational emergence. Relational emergence. So sound isn't something coming from the object itself. It's the result of resonance between your eardrum and the air vibrations. Without ears or air, sound simply doesn't manifest. Now, let's think about smell. Smell isn't really a property of the substance itself. It only manifests when you interact with the substance on a microscopic level. For example, molecules binding to receptors in your nose, or food dissolving and interacting with your taste buds. It depends on the degree of chemical tension resonance between you and the object. Similarly, taste isn't a property of the substance either. It's the manifestation of the chemical relationship between your body and the molecules. As mentioned before, if you have a bad cold and lose your sense of taste and smell, no matter how delicious the food is, you wouldn't be able to smell it or taste it. So what we just talked about highlights another key concept in relational non-duality. Experience is the resonant vibration between relationships, a so-called standing wave, not a one-way transmission. When we see, hear, touch, smell, or taste, it's essentially our hand with the table, our eyes with the light, our ears with the vibration, and our nose with the scent, our tongue with the food, are forming relationships with one another. This creates a resonance between them, and that creates this standing wave. And this standing wave, we call it experience. So we never perceive in just one direction. Experience emerges in the resonance of relationships, and it only manifests when the relationship between subject and world is activated. So this is the truth about manifestation. This is the truth about standing waves. This is how we experience things, physiologically and psychologically. This is the basic mechanism. When you truly see this clearly, a conclusion naturally appears. What we call the properties of an object are not fixed qualities that it absolutely possesses by itself. They are relative experiences that arise, that manifest within a specific field of relationships. The hardness of a table is not a property that belongs to the table alone. The feeling of hardness is the result of your hand's structure, your nervous system, and the scale of microscopic physics work together. If your body were structured differently, or if your size were reduced to the microscopic level, you would not encounter a solid surface, but vast empty spaces and interacting energy fields. The green of a tree is the same. Green is not a color that exists in the tree itself. It is the way the leaves reflect certain wavelengths of light, combined with the way your visual system processes those wavelengths. If your eyes could see ultraviolet light, the forest would appear completely different. What we call green is simply a stable manifestation within the relationship between human vision and light waves. The taste of food is no different. Sweet, sour, and spicy are not essentially properties carried by the food itself. They arise from the interaction between molecular structures and your taste receptors. If the structure of your taste buds changed, the taste would change. A smell that is attractive to some animals would be unbearable to you. A fruit that tastes sweet to you may mean nothing to another species. So you begin to realize what we call properties are actually results of relationships, not absolute qualities of things in themselves. Color is a relationship between light and the visual system. Sound is a relationship between vibration and the auditory system. Touch is a relationship between force and neurostructure. Taste is a relationship between molecules and receptors. If the relationship changes, the property changes. If the structure changes, the appearance of the world changes. Now, I'm going to say something very important. This does not mean the world is an illusion. It means the world is relational. Because how important this is, I'm going to say it again. This does not mean the world is an illusion. It means the world is relational. It is not a collection of isolated entities, but countless layers of interaction and manifestation. The reality we experience is a stable pattern that appears within our particular structure of existence. So, objective properties are not things that exist completely independent of any observer. Our experience that something has a certain property is simply a highly stable and repeatable relational result at a specific scale and structure. Stability makes us think it is absolute, but its essence is still relational. So this is the insight. The world is not made of fixed properties, but of manifested relationships. Properties are expressions within relationships, not isolated substance. With this step, we quietly move beyond traditional dualism. Classical philosophy has long asked, is experience subjective? Is matter objective? But if properties arise from relationships, then subjective and objective are simply two ends of the same relational structure. Take the hardness of a table again. It is not purely subjective because most humans experience it as hard, but it is also not purely objective because different species or different scales of existence would experience it very differently. It is simply a stable pattern manifested within a human scale relationship field. So now we can see it clearly. Experience is not produced by one side alone. It does not belong entirely to either subject or object. It is generated in interaction. The object is not an isolated substance, and the subject is not a closed center. both co-create experience within relationship. This path avoids the extremes of materialism and idealism and points toward a third way. Truth is not an isolated absolute property. It is a stable relational pattern across all levels. In other words, experience is not an illusion created by the subject, nor an essence carried by the object. It is the manifestation of relationship between structures. This not only dissolves the opposition between subject and object, but also explains the relativity of experience while perceiving the stability of reality, without falling into radical skepticism. This is truly a philosophical turning point. You may not realize it, but right now, we are quietly offering a new solution to a problem that has troubled philosophy for centuries: the opposition between the subjective and the objective. Relational non-duality says experience is neither purely subjective or purely objective. It is relational, and this is exactly where its power lies. Relational non-duality does not begin by asking which is primary. Is it matter or is it consciousness? No. It begins with relationship. It says what we call matter is not an independent substance existing outside of relationship. And what we call consciousness is also not a self-contained inner realm. Matter and consciousness are different levels of manifestation within relationship. The molecular structure of the table is one stable pattern within a relational network. The feeling of hardness is another pattern at a different level. They are not simply cause and effect in a hierarchy. They are different manifestations within the same relational field. So this is the core shift. Materialism says that matter produces consciousness. Idealism says that consciousness produces matter. Relational non-duality says that relationship manifests as matter and consciousness at different levels. Matter and consciousness are not opposites. They are two stable patterns within the same relational network. So when you ask, are what we see and touch real? Relational non-duality answers, yes, they are real, but real as relationships. They are not isolated substances, and they are not purely subjective illusions. They are real as stable relational manifestations when conditions are sufficient. What is real? The manifestation mechanism of matter and mind are real. This is where relational non-duality separates from traditional metaphysics. It does not reduce the world to matter, and it does not reduce the world to consciousness. It understands the world as the unfolding of relationship itself. Consciousness is not an all-powerful creator. Matter is not an absolute substance. The true foundation is relational structure. Relational non-duality does not need to assume an unverifiable cosmic consciousness. It only needs to recognize that all manifestations, including consciousness, are stable relational patterns formed under certain conditions. When conditions are complete, structure, such as matter and consciousness, are manifested. When conditions dissolve, matter and consciousness are unmanifested, back to that infinite potentiality. That is all. Okay, so once you understood this one about the standing wave, and then the second and third are just super easy to understand, right? So as long as the most important thing is that we know that this so-called wave itself is not like an entity or is like substance. It's neither materialism or idealism is relationship itself. So when the condition is enough, then it just manifested, as simple as that. So yeah, it's the resonance of relationship forming this wave. As long as we understand this, then we'll naturally understand what is the second about. The second is called maintenance, right? So obviously, the manifested experience, it requires our support, like physically or psychologically. For example, I want this feeling of touching this whiteboard continue. Then I need to keep touching it, as simple as that. Otherwise, this feeling will just not be there anymore. If I want to maintain, then I need to keep this relationship, this resonance, this manifested wave to let it continue to stand, to continue to let it manifest it. That's how, for example, you want to hear our music. If you just hear it here, then suddenly you just like block your ear. You wouldn't be hearing it anymore. So the manifestation of your experience of hearing something will suddenly just disappear, right? It will go to dissolving, the third stage, right? But that's what we call is like a natural wave. But if you just suddenly, you just deliberately, then you just go to the third stage a lot earlier, basically. So yeah, that's just how it is. The second stage will directly related to how we maintain a certain experience. Sometimes we can deliberately maintain that experience, sometimes we are not. But that's just the nature of every emerged experience. They are like this. Well, when we're talking about psychological experience, that will be more. We are talking about this more, but now you can be easily understand, especially when we're talking about physiological experience. That's super easy to understand. If you close your eyes, it's all gone. If you open your eyes, it's all here. I'm not talking about that. For example, this fake flower here, I'm not saying like I close my eyes, that just disappear. No, I'm saying that if I close my eyes, the manifestation of my visual experience of saying these things, it is manifested. Why? Because I didn't keep it last. I didn't maintain this manifestation of saying it. If I close my eyes, just go to the third stage. As simple as that. So I hope this makes sense to you. So I hope what I said here so far all makes sense to you, because I think it's just really a natural and a very simple way to explain it. I know it sounds like, wow, it's a topic about manifestation, about the existence of a world. Sounds like it's a huge topic. But I mean, when I talk like this, do you really think it's complicated? No, it's not difficult at all. So another thing is that when we're talking about the stage of dissolving, sometimes we feel sad, we feel depressed, because life is just like this, We are just like waves, and we manifest it, and one day will also dissolve. So it just reminds us death is just a natural reaction when we're talking about dissolving, because it shows that how the impermanence of experience as well, just like Buddha said about impermanence. And it's kind of like a sad thing, because a lot of things, that's why they suggest like you should detach from these things, because everything just like wave is constantly changing. You want to catch the wave, you can never catch the wave, and it's just a little bit sad. You want to standing on a frozen wave, on a high, on a peak time, the youth, the best mental ability or the best enjoyment in a lifetime is impossible, because it's always moving, and eventually we're just gonna unmanifest it, our physical body, and so it's a little bit sad. But I think it depends on how you say it. Really depends on how you say it, because what I say it, I can also say it in another angle, and I found the beauty of existence is what? Is the forever validity of flowing, is the forever relational field. And you see, this vivid, this manifestation wave is gonna be forever. Nobody can stop it, and it's beginningless. And that's the essence of life, essence of everything, is ever fresh, is eternal, even though we cannot really, as one of the manifestation, as one of the sunlight, we're one of its beautiful expression. That means everything. That means everything. That we are the most beautiful expression of this full of potential. We manifest it as a harmonious relationship, harmonious expression of one of the manifestation. That itself is beautiful. That itself is meaningful. That itself is not sad. It's just not sad. But I mean, also, this really depends on how people say it, and how people say things are also related to their life experience, about their mental state, about what they've been through. So if some people, they have a little bit like negative tendency, they might see more sadness in this. Some people have more positive tendency, they might even say everything great in the worst situation. That's just about the tendency. It's true, but doesn't mean, if this is inevitable, if this is the reality for all of us, nothing stops us to see the beautiful side of it. Nothing stops us to be a beautiful manifestation itself. Actually, the people who have negative tendency or positive tendency, when we're talking about this manifestation, I think at a point, I think it's just the trend that people eventually they will go to this conclusion. It's about time, really. We wait for so long to finally return to this understanding of reality, which just echo with thousands of years ago. And now it's time that we're going to. We all will agree with this reality eventually, that love is reality, relationship is reality. And it just sometimes people understand it and see it in different angle. That's all. So essentially, where it differs, is about our attitude towards life. It's about how we choose to build our relationship with the world, how we choose to build a relationship with others and ourselves, how we choose to vibrate within. So it's about your choice, essentially. The truth is always there. What differs is our free will, is our choices. So we never experience this world alone. True experience isn't a one-way reception of information, and it's not an object for a separate me to control, to explain or own. True experience is about resonance. It only happens when a relationship is established and maintained. When you reach out and touch an object, the sense of touch isn't in your hand, and it's not in the object either. It happens in the space between you and the object. In that relational field, that's manifestation. It doesn't happen there, it happens in between. If an object exists but never forms a relationship with you, it's unmanifested for you. On the other hand, even a small ripple in your inner awareness can become manifested as long as it resonates with you. This is how relational non-duality rewrites reality. It's not about what is, but about what echoes in relationships. It's not about does it exist, but about does it resonate. Manifestation isn't some mysterious creation, nor is it a projection of some essence onto a virtual world. It's the essence, it's the natural result of relational field. And you are not just an observer, you are a necessary part of this internal dance. We often get stuck in debates like, is matter real or is consciousness real? Because we mistakenly think experience is just a tool. It's something that we use as a subject to capture the world. But if we truly pay attention to the most moving moments, we see that those experiences are not about getting something. They are about being pierced by a relationship. This is the shift relational non-duality wants to bring. You are not knowing the world, you are responding to it. You are not recognizing an object, you are being called by the relationship. You are not owning experience, you are becoming the vibration of the experience itself. Every touch, every gaze, every sound or taste is a glowing bridge between you and the world. The manifestation of experience is the poetry of existence. So in the next episode, we will delve into psychological experience. If you enjoy my channel, please subscribe, and I'm looking forward to hear your feedback and thoughts. I wish you all the best, my friends, and I will see you soon